All right. So with that, and then like I said, folks, if you have any questions, start dropping them into the chat. I don't see too many questions right now. So we're going to go ahead and jump into the next section of the stream. Okay, so in the next section, Aja and I are going to just do a pretty in-depth breakdown of the specific essay prompts you're going to be writing for your UPenn essays. So, oh, actually, I do see a question from Elizabeth. What would be an interesting topic to write about in your essay? I am a female Eagle Scout. Would this be a good topic to discuss about my leadership advances? Aja, I'd be curious to hear your reaction to writing about an Eagle Scout as a potential topic.
I really like this direction. Maybe I'm a little biased though. I was a Girl Scout, so I think that this is a great direction to talk about community in one of your essays. There's a great opportunity to to talk about, challenges you overcome when you've been working as an Eagle Scout. If you've done your Eagle Scout project, that's also a really great topic to talk about. And also just talking about how you've learned throughout the process of giving back to your community. So this this is a topic where you can kind of address things twofold. You can talk about the leadership work that you've done and also the work that you've done in your community and how you've learned from that and how you've grown from that. So that's, I think, a great topic, whether that's a topic you address in your Common App essay or one of your supplementals, like that would be a great fit for the Penn Community Supplemental. I think that's a great topic.
Awesome. So, and literally right as I said, hey, we're going to move on, folks all started streaming in with the questions. So next question is from College Applicant. You mentioned an essay number 4. I don't see that on Penn's website. So I was referencing prompt number 4 on the Common App, right? There's 7 Common App essay prompts. So I was referencing the gratitude essay prompt on the Common App, saying that if you choose to respond to that prompt, it makes it harder for you to find something else to write your UPenn gratitude essay about. Okay, and our next question here is from Vanulatha. How do you suggest we research to write essays on why UPenn? Is it essential that we speak to an alum about this or just do research on the website? Aja, any thoughts on how to approach
so there are kind of
UPenn?
two approaches I recommend for this. So you're going to spend time on the website regardless. So I recommend beginning with whatever you think your intended major is going to be. And it's okay if you're not 100% sure. This process is repeatable for multiple majors if that's something you're interested in. But basically, you can go into Google, type UPenn major, and that'll bring up the departmental website for that major. And basically, that website is going to have everything you need to kind of investigate your academic interests. So you can see, okay, what kind of classes are majors in this, or students in this major taking? And it'll list out those classes, and it'll list out usually course descriptions and most importantly, professors. So let's say you find a course that you really like, it sounds super cool. You can see it's taught by Professor so-and-so. Then you can go to Professor so-and-so's page. They'll usually have a faculty page. If there's someone who works in a lab or runs a lab, they'll probably have a web page for their lab. And then you can start looking at other stuff that they've done. So maybe they've done some really cool research. Maybe they gave a TED Talk. Those are things that you can kind of check out to get more familiar with the academic side of your intended major. And you can do this till you find a professor or a course or an idea that really resonates with you to talk about in that academic prompt. So that's kind of one way I suggest kind of hit the academic side of your interest, is to start with the departmental website, dig down until you find something that's really speaking to you. Another really great place to start your research for things like clubs and getting involved in the community is the Penn Club's website. I really like, they upgraded it right as I graduated, which was unfortunate because the old website was terrible. But it's this really wonderful site that lists all of the Penn clubs and organizations, sports teams that the university offers. You can filter by like different activity types. Is this a volunteering group? Is this a music group? Things like that. And it's going to list all of these different activities, what they're about. It lists contact information if you want to reach out to people who are currently in those groups. So if you want to get a little bit more of a human side, but those are the two kind of spots I would start, is departmental pages and the club's website. If you can speak to a current student or an alum, that's great. if you apply to Penn, you'll most likely get an interview with an alum and you'll be able to ask them some questions, because they'll give you the real tea on what stuff is like, or at least some alumni will. And that's how you can get a little bit more of like personal information. But for getting that fact-finding research done, the club's website and the departmental websites.
Awesome. And I think we have another question here from Millie. Literally right as I was like, hey, no questions here. I guess we're gonna move on. Okay, great. Thanks, everyone. Hi, you said the undergrad school essay was 450 words, but on the comment it says that all the essays are 150 to 200. We will double check on that for you, Millie, and come right back. And I know that Alok asked a similar question as well. Okay, next question is from Elizabeth. Should we go research for any college, the beliefs and ideals of the college or university to appeal more to the college? Aja, any perspective there?
So you shouldn't necessarily be trying to change your beliefs and ideas to fit what you think a college wants from you. You want to pick a college. Ideally, you're picking a college that already aligns with your beliefs. So if a college is, pushing forward something that you don't agree with, you shouldn't necessarily be pursuing that college. Because one of the best pieces of advice I got during the college application process was, at the end of the day, it's you who goes to college, not your parents, not your peers, not your teachers, and you deserve to be happy there. So kind of one question that you should ask yourself is, if the beliefs at a school or the belief system that a school has doesn't align with mine, is this a place where I'm going to be successful and I'm going to be happy? And you may say, yes, that's totally fine. I'm going to go change hearts and minds. But that also may not be something that you want to experience every day of your daily life. So I would say, yes, do your research on the beliefs and ideals of a college and a university, but don't appeal to them outside of what you already believe, if that makes sense.
All right, awesome. And yeah, I just double checked it, and it actually is the case that the why UPenn, why major essay is 200 words. So most of the advice in here still applies. We'll just double check what was going on with our research team there. But no worries, folks. Yeah, the advice still broadly applies. It's just you have to be a little different tactically with how you write a 200-word essay. All right. Okay. So all right. So with that, we're gonna go ahead and pause for some more Q&A. Just want to quickly, before we get into that, clean up the 450 words thing. This is just a typo right here, right? In terms of it's saying 450 words. No, okay. So what's happening here is this is a typo from a previous edition of the draft. I'm going to go ahead and pull up the new version of the deck now that has the correct information. So I apologize about that, folks. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and do that. As we're doing that, just want to quickly reshare the link for grabbing some time if you'd like to work with Aja. I know many of you are still looking for a college counselor, so I'm going to go ahead and put a link to grab some time with her and chat about your college applications. And then in the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and open up the correct link because it was a typo up there that we had in there, so I do apologize about that, folks. All right. Sweet. And as we're doing that, we do have a few more questions. So I'm going to go ahead, and first question here is from RJ990. Can I write about someone I interacted with in my middle school years and not in high school when I'm responding to the gratitude prompt? Aja, any perspective there?
Yeah, so I think that probably it's the best to respond to someone you interacted with in high school, just because it's going to be more relevant to your college applications. However, if this was someone who was really, really meaningful and really shaped your, experience as a student, I think you can still do it. But keep in mind, you want to kind of have that balance there where you're thinking about colleges are looking for things that are going to be, relevant to them down the line, which is why they're considering your experiences in high school and not middle school. But, if this person was really, really relevant to you and had a really powerful impact on your life, I say go for it. Personally, when I applied to Penn, one of my supplemental letters of recommendation was from my English teacher who taught me from 6th grade to 9th grade and also supervised the literary magazine I worked on from during high school. So I had someone from middle school in my app. So I don't think it's necessarily a no-go, but you want to consider that it's someone really, really important to you and had a really meaningful impact on your life.
Awesome. And I don't see any more questions right now, but I'll give folks another minute or so because we saw that last time where y'all slid in with 454 questions right after we wrap things up. So we're gonna go ahead and give y'all another minute or so before we move on to the next set of slides.
I always feel like I have questions right as the question session is like ending. So I feel that struggle.
Oh, okay, here we go. Elizabeth. If I read about my parents who did significantly have an impact on my life, would this be too common? Should I pick a more interesting person?
I think, again, here, there's a little bit of a trade-off. I think parents as a whole may be common, but parents are going to be individual to every single person who writes about them. So, and that is really the most important thing about this prompt is that it's personal and that it's genuine. So I think your parents are totally an appropriate avenue for this. I wouldn't be too stressed about it being decently common because everyone's relationships with their parent is different and everyone is, banking their parents for different things and different experiences. So I would not stress about that being too common.
All right, awesome. And our next question is from Elanus. Do extracurricular classes or achievements in middle school matter? Broadly speaking, no. So colleges aren't really looking at your achievements or extracurriculars or grades in middle school. Now, your grades in middle school do impact your, high school trajectory in the sense of it might change which math track you're on, or it might have been where you uncovered your interest in debate. But colleges care a lot more about who you are right now. And as I'm sure you have experienced yourself, if you are a senior or junior, you've probably changed a lot over the course of high school, and colleges know that that's a very common approach, right? So the short answer is no, they don't really matter. All right, and the next question we have here is from Young. Do we write it more like a letter or more like an essay? Aja, any perspective on that one?
So you kind of have to straddle the line in between because a letter would probably be a little bit more casual, but you still need to strike the academic tone of an essay. So you can, I would say, my advice would be to write the body of it. You don't actually need the dear, whatever their name, thank you, or sincerely, you don't need to waste words on those kind of things. But it should kind of strike the line right in between, tonally, between an essay and a letter. Not quite as casual as a letter, but you still want the emotive content that you would have if you were writing them a letter.
Yeah, and I think I would also say that, kind of the easiest way to think about it is you're writing, it should kind of feel and sound like a letter, but you don't necessarily need the literal structure of a letter. It's probably another way of thinking about that. All right, our next question is from UKAN. Okay. I transferred from another country during my junior year to the US, thus I couldn't take any advanced classes like AP and IB. However, in my senior year, I'm taking 7 AP classes. Do you think that UPenn will understand my situation? Aja, any perspective there?
Definitely. So when you submit your application, your counselor is going to submit something called your school report. And usually, depending on your school situation, you can get this from counselors from previous schools, but the expectation is usually just the school that you're at. But that is going to document what kind of things were offered at your high school or were offered in your country, because some countries don't do AP at all, or it's very challenging to do AP. So Penn is not going to punish you for classes that you weren't able to gain access to, whether that's because you were studying abroad, whether that's because, your school didn't offer them. So they're not going to hold that against you. The most important thing is that you took the most rigorous classes that were offered to you when they were offered to you. So what that looked like in the other country you were living in, and what that looks like now in the States where you're taking 7 APs. So they'll understand, they're not going to hold it against you.
Yeah. And the only thing I would add to that is it is worth having a conversation with your school counselor or your guidance counselor and just making sure that they're reiterating that point in their material that they provide to universities. Next question is from TVV. Should the essay be written to someone or about them? Aja, any perspective there?
So as we talked about before, it should be kind of both. You still, like, as the prompt mentioned, you should in theory be able to give this to them. So you're obviously talking about them when you thank them, but you wouldn't want to talk about them in a negative way, of course, in a prompt like this. So I would say it's both. You can write it to them and about them, keeping in mind that you don't have to literally write it to the person's name. In theory, you can give this piece of writing to them actually after you've submitted it. So
yeah. I think the only thing I would add is when you ask a question like, should the essay be about them? I get a little scared, right? Because the essay is about how they impacted you. So when you say about them, what does that mean? And to me, that gives me a bit of a pause for a second. All right, and then the last question we'll do right now in this section is from Elanus. How eye-catching should the first sentence be? Well, I feel like we had a little tip that talked exactly about that. But the short answer is very eye-catching. Now, there are different ways to be eye-catching with your first sentence. It can be jumping straight into the action. It can be something like just a beautifully written sentence that is like really, I guess, like interesting or engaging, or a great starting point. It can be a something that makes the reader pause and go, huh, what's going on there? So there are different ways to be engaging and I guess eye-catching, but your first sentence absolutely has to grab the reader. You've only got 200 words to get them excited into your essay. All right, awesome. So with that, we're going to go ahead and wrap up tonight's live stream. Before we head out, we're going to spend a few more moments for Q&A. I'm going to put the information to be able to grab some time with Aja if you want to work with her on your college applications and your college essays one more time onto your screen. And as we're waiting for folks to stream in with questions, just want to do a quick pulse check. If you feel like you got something of value out of tonight's live stream, just give me a quick emoji reaction. Could be a thumbs up, could be a heart, could be an LOL if you just want to laugh. And yeah, just give some quick feedback, and then we're going to go ahead and jump into some more Q&A before we wrap up here. All right, first question is from UK Anne. I always trip over that username. I've used English for 2 years now, and I cannot improve my reading and writing score on the SAT. However, I got a 760 on the math section. I will not be majoring in English nor literature. My overall score is a 1320. Do you think this matters? Are they going to consider me as a foreign student and give a consideration about my SAT score? So I would say candidly that at schools like UPenn, it's not just one or the other, right? Like, yes, your math score is going to be weighted more heavily if you're applying to, say, an engineering program or something like that. But every kind of course and every academic pathway at UPenn requires pretty substantial English language abilities. So I think that 1320 is going to put you behind the curve. Frankly, in your situation, what I'd probably do is apply test optional and hope to use really well-written college essays as a almost like a counterweight, because I wouldn't necessarily lean on your SAT score. All right, next question is from Ashu. To pursue medicine, should I apply to the Arts and Sciences College at UPenn? Aja, any perspective there? Like, when folks were going to medical school or planning on applying out to medical school, were they mostly in the College of Arts and Sciences, or did they kind of come from all over? I can't imagine too many came from Wharton, just because of how competitive, I guess, how demanding pre-med is and how demanding Wharton is. But curious, like, was it mostly CAS, or was it kind of more all over the map?
Yeah, it's definitely mostly students in CAS, but you can be pre-med under in any of the Penn schools. Pre-med at Penn is not a major, it's just a track. So you could be any major in theory in any school, though most of them are going to be in the college to be pre-med. So if arts and sciences is, got something that you want to study, it's got a major that you're interested in that you want to do while you're doing your pre-med stuff, I would recommend doing that.
Awesome. Okay, just taking a look here. Okay, one more question from UKN. In order to apply to UPenn, do I have to apply to a specific undergrad school or to the university overall? No, you have to choose a specific undergraduate school that you're applying to. Next question is from Millie. Is a 1560 composite with a 760 on the maths competitive? Also, what is like a GPA cutoff to think about? So I would say 1560 maths, like a composite, is plenty competitive. You're definitely someone who would benefit from submitting their test score. In terms of the GPA, I think it varies a little bit depending on the types of courses that you took. My answer is going to be a little different if you took all sort of base level courses versus if you took a bunch of AP or IB classes. As a good rule of thumb, though, in your sort of base level classes, you want to have mostly A's. In your more advanced courses, you want to have sort of a mixture of A's and A minuses, maybe a few B pluses thrown in there, depending on how rigorous your course load was. What that usually translates to in terms of a GPA, again, because every high school's weighting system is so different, I can't really speak to your specific high school, but if you're looking at an unweighted GPA, that's usually going to be like a 3.7, 3.8 if you've got like a heavy AP course load, and then a 3.9-ish if you're more in that regular course load. Next question is from Elizabeth. Elizabeth asking a lot of great questions in tonight's live stream. So currently I have a good score on the ACT, above a 25. Will creating really good essays or other college application stuff be good enough, or is there anything else I can do to stand out? Well, so I guess the first thing I would say is that, like, candidly for UPenn, you say above 25. I'd be curious to know what that exact number is, just because above 25 could be a 34, in which case, yeah, you do have a very strong score, or it could be a 29, in which case that's actually probably not a worthwhile score to submit to UPenn specifically. There are other colleges where a 29 will still be really useful for you. I think really good essays is pretty much the only thing you can do to stand out now. Right? If we were having this conversation in your freshman year, there's obviously a bunch of different pathways and trajectories you could take. But now, yeah, I would say essays are probably your biggest point of leverage. And then the last question we have here is from Ashu. Is a 1490 SAT a good score to submit for UPenn? 1490 is kind of more on the borderline. It depends a little bit on your background and on which program you're applying to, and also on actually your profile, right? If you've got really wow, the questions start streaming in. It's like clockwork tonight.
Yeah.
Like, okay, we're gonna go ahead and wrap things up here.
They gotta warm up,
We're gonna stick around and answer the rest of your questions. So, okay, actually, sorry. Circling back to your question. So, 1490 SAT. It depends. If you've got really great grades and a really great extracurricular profile and you're pretty confident in your ability to write really great essays, maybe don't submit it. If you have more of an uneven profile across any of those three, submit it. Okay, next question. Millie, one more. Does UPenn prefer the SAT or the ACT? I have a 35 composite, but a math is a 32. Well, so specifically for you, it sounds like you've got a 1560 on the SAT. I'd submit the 1560 over the 35. The reason is that those are pretty similar in terms of the percentile score on the SAT versus the ACT, but the same percentile score on the SAT is seen as more, I guess, like prestigious or valuable than the same percentile score on the ACT. And the reason is that the ACT is taken by a lot of students who are not necessarily intending to apply to colleges. So it tends to have a bit more of a generous curve in terms of where you stand on the percentiles. Okay, the next question we have here is from UK Ann. I don't really have any honors and awards. What advice would you guys give to me? So I think honors and awards, first, I think you'd be surprised as to what might qualify as an honor or an award, right? You may have received a commendation from one of your extracurricular activities. You may have received placement on the honor roll. All that stuff counts. Beyond that, I would say that honors and awards are a nice sort of value add, but they are not the be-all end-all if you've got a extracurricular profile that shows lots of deep commitment. Now, if you are in that position where you don't necessarily have the awards or the trophy cabinet, right, you need to pivot to a little bit of a different approach, and that's across both how you present your resume and your essays. You've got to get more deeply into like the passion that you have for these activities and highlight that in kind of both those areas. Okay, next question is from Finley. I want to study math and finance. Should I apply to Wharton or A&S? Aja, any perspective there?
So it really depends. an economics degree in the college is going to look pretty different from an economics degree in Wharton. You'll be specializing in different things. You'll be taking different courses. So I would say, do your research, look at what a finance degree is going to look like, or an economics degree, or a math degree is going to look like, and see what kind of courses those students are taking. And, if you're like, actually, I don't really like this, apply to whichever one seems like a better fit. At the end of the day, let's say, you apply to College of Arts and Sciences, you get in, you go, you're not really enjoying it. Maybe you're taking a class in Wharton through the one university policy and you're enjoying that more. It is not impossible to transfer into Wharton from arts and sciences, or vice versa, if you apply to one school and you find you actually want to be in the other, but it is decently challenging. So I would recommend you check out those two majors, their respective websites, make sure that those are a good fit for your interests and something you would enjoy doing.
Okay. And next question is from TVV. In my prior question, I meant to ask if the essay should be speaking to the person I'm thanking or explaining to someone else about my gratitude to the person. I think Aja was that the essay should be sort of directed to that person, right? It's asking you to write a thank you note to that person. All right, and the next question is from Olenis. I've heard that I shouldn't request a recommendation letter from teachers of the same subject, e.g. 2 English teachers. Is this true? So I would say that, broadly speaking, my answer is yes if you're applying to selective colleges. And the reason is that you want to kind of show that you can get along with teachers of all different stripes, because you're going to be working with professors of all different stripes in college. You're not just going to be dealing with professors in one particular major. And again, remember, part of what colleges are trying to assess when they're selective is we've got a bunch of folks who are qualified. Who do we want to bring into our community? And so someone who's going to have more flexibility and be able to connect with different kinds of personalities, that's just another check in, in your column in terms of being able to say, hey, this is someone who's going to be a good member of our campus community. And then one final question is from college applicants. Is it possible to apply to Wharton but say that you're interested in the college if Wharton passes on it? Aja?
No, it is not. So you could only select a backup school in the case that you're applying for a dual degree program. So if you're applying to a program to begin with that is a degree in 2 colleges, you select and you apply, let's say like AD, you can select one of those colleges to be your backup and say, yes, even if I don't get into this dual degree program, I still want to be admitted to this school. But if you're applying just to one of the schools, you can't select another school as a backup.
Okay, and Elizabeth, on the topic of recommendation letters, what people should I be looking at to ask? So again, this is probably a topic that's too deep to get into exclusively in this live stream, but what I will say broadly in terms of some heuristics are, look for teachers that know you better. Broadly speaking, the better a teacher knows you, the better off you are. And I think sometimes this is the tricky thing, because that may not necessarily be the teachers whose classes you got the best grades in. Now, I do think that there is a degree to which you don't want to go to a teacher that you got like a D or a C in their class, right? It's like, you want to have performed well in their class, but if you have like an A+ in one teacher's class, but an indifferent relationship with them versus an A or an A- in another teacher's class, but you've got a great relationship with them, is kind of the big thing. Beyond that, I would say you generally tend to want to pick junior year teachers if you can. Maybe go to a sophomore year teacher if you absolutely have to. I would stay away from freshman year teachers just because they're so far removed from who you are as a senior. Okay, next question is from RJ. Can I skip ED and apply only RD without hurting my chances of admission? The short answer is no. And the unfortunate reality is that from Penn's perspective, right, ED is really valuable because from Penn's perspective, if you apply ED, you are definitely going to enroll at UPenn if you get accepted, right? And they care a lot about making sure that, most of the kids that they end up accepting, or as many of them as possible, end up enrolling at UPenn. So from that perspective, I would say the short answer is no, you really can't, because there is a pretty substantial admissions boost you get from applying ED. All right, folks, with that, let's going to go ahead and wrap up tonight's live stream. Thank you all for attending. Thank you, Aja, for joining me and sharing all of the insight you have. I'm going to go ahead and put up the link one more time if you want to grab some time with Aja. But thanks, everyone, and have a wonderful evening. If any of you are applying to Cornell, I'll be back in about an hour to do a walkthrough of Cornell's essay prompts. So I'll put a link to that on the screen as well. All right, that's everything. Thanks, Aja, again.
You're welcome. It was great being here.